The IRS commissioner denying allegations he retaliated against whistleblowers in his ranks who said they felt Hunter Biden was getting preferential treatment. Quote, the IRS whistleblower you reference alleges that the change in their work assignment came at the direction of the Department of Justice. As a general matter and not in reference to any specific case, I believe it is important to emphasize that in any matter involving federal judicial proceedings, the IRS follows the direction of the Justice Department.
Former FBI Special Agent and Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam joins us now. Jonathan, I'm going to throw a few things at you real quick, and then I want your thoughts on this. So what we have here is this whistleblower alleging that he was dismissed after raising concerns. He claimed, I was removed this week from a highly sensitive case after nearly 5 years of work. I was not afforded the opportunity of a phone call directly from my special agent, even though this had been my investigation since the start. Okay, so the newest part is the IRS commissioner claimed when an employee raises allegations of this kind, the commissioner's office does not run an investigation, seek the identity of the whistleblower, or similarly intervene. Instead, the inspector general serves as a critical guardian of the whistleblower process. Your thoughts on all of this that has transpired?
So let's look at what he's saying. He's saying that those at the top of the IRS aren't going to investigate this, but they're going to hand it off to a completely leftist organization, which is the DOJ, to do the investigating, right? So that doesn't give me any comfort whatsoever. Pretty much across the board at the top of our federal government agencies, leftists or careerists are running these agencies. So when one dumps it off into the seat of another, it's if they're on the same plane of ideology, well, they're not going to rock the boat. And I can see the structure of this when it comes to, and interestingly enough, what they're looking at, or what they were looking at, is the structuring of the Bidens, and in their investigation, looking at how they are using all these different businesses basically to launder money. And so, and that's called structuring. Well, within that criminal enterprise that the Bidens run is also the connections with the people at the very top of all these agencies. So when one says, hey, we're not going to investigate it, we're going to allow for ethics for the DOJ to investigate it. Well, the DOJ is on Team Biden. So nobody's getting a fair shake as far as these agents go.
Yeah, if the IRS commissioner's goal was to calm our fears with regard to government overreach, mission not accomplished. Means I want to get your thoughts on this. The FBI has again refused to hand over a document that Republicans claim shows President Biden was involved in a criminal scheme. Again, we're asking the FBI to turn over one document, and they come back with lots of excuses, and we can't do this, we'll do it, but we're not. But back in 2021, you recall, the FBI improperly found the time to use warrantless search powers against U.S. citizens over 278,000 times. Boy, they can sure hustle when they want to and slow roll when they say they need to, Jonathan.
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting, and what you're saying is absolutely true. And the other part about this that bothers me greatly is, what are the subpoena powers of Congress? Yes, the Congress holds the power of the purse, but you're talking about federal agencies that are funded regardless of the DOJ and the FBI. They're not going to go away. They're still going to be funded at the end of the day. So you have a bunch of people at the top of the DOJ and the FBI that are just stumming their face at these subpoenas from Congress and saying no. And it shows you exactly what the problem is that as I was talking about with the IRS, the FBI and the DOJ, remember, all of the most recent directors of the FBI were all attorneys in the DOJ. They all know each other. They're all connected, and they're going to do what is best for either for their careers or for their ideology. And in this case, Team Biden wins again, and all those leftists at the top of all these agencies are just saying no. They just ignore the subpoenas from Congress.
It really does beg the question, does the FBI work for the people or literally work against them, Ash?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. But now, Jonathan, the House Ethics Committee, it also closed its 2-year-long investigation into Congressman Eric Swalwell's ties to suspected Chinese spy Fang Fang. The committee warning, quote, members should be conscious of the possibility that foreign governments may attempt to secure improper influence through gifts and other interactions. Now, granted, he was booted from this committee that he was on, the House Intel Committee, earlier this year by McCarthy. So it's not like 100% loss for us. But when Swalwell responds saying, yeah, it's time to move on, I bet he does want everyone to move on from this.
I'm sure he does. And apparently Congress is following right in suit with what he says. And, you know, I am happy that McCarthy came in and got him off of that committee. That was a huge step. Because, you know, when these people received gifts, are they receiving gifts because they have a relationship? Are they receiving gifts because they provided information? Or is that foreign entity developing a relationship and giving them gifts in order to get them to give information? This is a huge game that's played, and nothing that's been shown about Swalwell has actually shown us that he was innocent of not giving information to this person who he had a relationship with. There's nothing that's been proven to the American people. And this is a huge deal, because what you just said there a second ago, Todd, about the American people versus the FBI or the DOJ, well, these are supposedly representatives of the American people. And when you think about that, you realize that some representatives who are representing the people who cannot stand against government, as we've seen, they are not getting proper representation by people who have relationships with foreign entities, but also the federal agencies that are supposed to be holding the scales of justice are ignoring the people when they ignore their representatives.
Ignoring the people. You couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better myself, Jonathan. Thank you so much for your time and your insight this morning. We always appreciate you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.